played really well, and Alexander Madison, CJ Ham has done a nice job blocking, and for the most part, we're getting on the right guys and creating some space for those guys. And Kirk's doing a good job getting us in the right play.
And Kirk. And Kirk's there too.
Kirk. Getting us in the right play.
I'm pretty sure we brought this up yesterday too. The more I hear that soundbite, by the way, Purple Daily, Mackey, Judd, Declan, you can find us in audio form, podcast form on Apple, Spotify, and scorenorth.com. Go ahead and subscribe to those podcast feeds if you could. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Purple Daily Podcast. We also have Mackey and Judd, our other podcast, where you can also find that Apple, Spotify, scorenorth.com, and youtube.com/scorenorthmn. I feel like Mike Zimmer is literally complimenting Kirk Cousins for being able to call plays in the huddle.
Easily, dude.
Handoff to Dalvin.
Yeah, he's saying he's getting us. He's basically saying that he's taking what Gary Kubiak tells him in his helmet in the huddle, and he is doing a good job of articulating that and then taking the football and handing it off to Dalvin Cook. That's exactly what he's saying.
That's good. You know what? The last couple of weeks, that's all you need to do. When you have a running back playing at the level that Dalvin Cook is and the defense can't stop it, like your plan A is, let's just keep running it down their throats. And to this point, the Packers and the Lions have not been able to do anything about that.
Can I ask a question? In football, do you need to, if every team knows, and right now they do, what the Vikings are going to do you need to do the elaborate play calls? Like scheme 87, red 19, green 13, Abra, Mercedes. Like, do you need all that, or do you just go,
guys,
Dalvin on 3. Dalvin, hot, Dalvin.
Did you guys? So my last year of I played baseball through high school, but my last year of football was like it was either 8th or 9th grade. I can't remember what it was. Do you guys remember what like your play calls were early on in your? Did you guys ever play like youth football or no?
I played offensive line, but then they cut me and they never played me, so I never.
You played offensive line?
No, it was a complete joke. I've never played football.
God, he was a pulling. He was a pulling guard, Declan Goff.
But like the play calls, like when you first get into football, it's like sweep right, sweep left,
sure,
dive middle, right? That's pretty much what the Vikings can call right now. Dalvin,
but I mean, you could just get up to the line and say, 33, Dalvin Cook's gonna get the ball, hot.
So this is a good segue. Every Wednesday we do a state of Kirk Cousins discussion. He's the most important and highest paid player on the team, and really like the direction of the franchise, even though Dalvin Cook has been their most valuable offensive contributor and he's just been the key cog in getting the Vikings back on the winning track, Kirk Cousins is still the most important figure for the team in that he takes up such a high percentage of your salary cap. And at some point, when a defense, maybe Chicago on Monday, decides, listen, Dalvin ain't running for 200 today, we're going to put everybody on the roster in the box if needed and make Kirk, like at some point, it's going to come back around to Kirk because the Vikings have run this formula before in the Brad Childress era before Brett Favre. They ran the formula in 2012 when Peterson ran for 2000. And there are stops along the way, even in the great running seasons where, and you can point to other teams too, where a defense says enough is enough today. That guy's not beating us. And it comes back to Kirk. So I want to go through a couple different Kirk Cousins nuggets here and then just get your thoughts on where the Vikings and Kirk Cousins stand as a pairing. According to Pro Football Focus, Kirk is actually the 11th highest graded quarterback in the entire league. He's behind only, Kyler Murray, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott before the injury, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. He's just ahead of Drew Brees, Joe Burrow, Ben Roethlisberger, Justin Herbert. So your thoughts when I throw that at you right now, Pro Football Focus, they've been evaluating everything all season. They say Kirk's kind of like the 11th best quarterback in the NFL. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are the last 2 games, he has been absolutely perfect for what he should do. And his rating is going up because of that. So I'm not surprised. The more Dalvin thrives, the more in the world that you just gave me, Phil, Kirk is going to go up because he's actually doing his job and he's fine. Now, the key is the more that you actually have to lean back on Kirk, the more that goes down.
I think you've kind of nailed it here. And here's the other nugget that I want to bring up. Kirk Cousins when running play action versus Kirk Cousins when he's not running play action. It's the difference between a guy who looks like an MVP candidate sometimes, play action Kirk, and no play action Kirk, which is sort of like no safety net, dude. You're the quarterback. You got to drop back and you got to make it happen, right?
Mhm.
When he runs play action this season, he has the 9th best passer rating in the NFL at 111.1, which is really, really good, obviously. When he doesn't run play action, that number drops by 22 points to 89.9, and he drops to 22nd in the NFL with 7 interceptions on non-play action throws. So he is truly and uniquely connected to the success of the Vikings running game. And so what happens is when the Vikings are running the ball so well, and even just like the threat of them running the ball so well, and then they're using play action and bootlegs and getting Kirk out and just sort of survey, like he knows when he turns around, he knows there's a tight end or there's an Adam Thielen or a Justin Jefferson, and the defense has bit on the play action. Those are sort of insulated and scripted situations where he can thrive. And so he deserves credit for taking advantage of those insulated, scripted situations at a high level, not just this year, but the last couple of years too.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to get away from that, and it's more just like, all right, hey, we're down by 10 and they're taking away the run game and we're going to run shotgun and you got to find some guys. That's when he starts to look much, much, much less like a fringe top 10 quarterback. So I think we've kind of seen all the sides of Kirk now in 2.5 years. And the way the Vikings are using him right now, it kind of shows you, I'll just say it, like they know that he's not the guy to lead them. They know that he's not the guy necessarily even beyond 2020.
Yes.
They're just trying to put him in the best situation to draft off of Dalvin Cook. Yeah. If this was a NASCAR race,
it's
Dalvin's in the lead. Just sort of follow Dalvin.
It's Peterson in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Kirk Cousins is 2 things. I mean, this is. I'm conflicted in some ways because there are good things about him that he can do well. But I've said both of the following things for a few years now, and I firmly believe them to be true. He handles the position and he plays it like a corporate quarterback. He is a corporate quarterback. He's the type of guy who's going to say the right things. You install him and he looks the part big time. Like if you were to cast him in a movie at QB, it would be very like, oh yeah, I can totally see that. The second thing, and I've said this as well, he is a puppet string quarterback. If I can play the puppet strings, he's going to be successful. But if we have to cut those strings and say, go out there and do this now, it's going to be a disaster. And it's that simple. But this gets back to the heart of the problem that the Vikings truly have, okay? Keenum at his best was still too irresponsible for the head coach's liking. He was a fun QB to watch, and I think we all across the board agreed that what he did in 2017 was not sustainable. But in that year, he was really damn good, right? But he was irresponsible. He would do things where you said, eventually this is going to bite you in the ass. And eventually in the conference title game, it did.
Yeah.
So what did they go out and do? They went out and actually got a quarterback who is very good at executing, when on puppet strings, the system that the head coach loves, which is give me a star running back, give me a quarterback who's going to be controlled almost completely when things are going well, and it's going to be fine. The problem is very simple. It's the payday. So now you are paying a quarterback to be a star to actually, I mean, Kirk Cousins is the definition at his best, Phil. I mean, there is no questioning this. He is the definition of what we have always called a game manager, right?
Yes.
Like at his best, that's what he does. And that's great. And if he was making 12 mil, I think we'd all be thrilled. We'd all be like, this is great.
Yes.
So this is where I'm conflicted, because you're paying him as a star. You are basically paying him as a guy who on Sundays goes out there and wins games, if need be at times, by himself. But he can't do that. You're paying him like that. But what you're getting at his best is a guy who can manage the game around the fact that Dalvin Cook is your star.
Yeah. I mean, here's another nugget for you, okay? And this is just more evidence that the Vikings know he's not the guy. And by the guy, I mean, like what you just said is right. He's not the guy that's going to be the reason why you win football games on a regular basis. He's there to drive a car, like sit in the car. The engine's got a ton of horsepower. Like just don't crash the car, right? And this is amazing. The Vikings have the second fewest pass attempts of any team in the NFL this year. In part because Dalvin Cook's amazing, but also in part because they don't trust Kirk to not crash the vehicle after the 10 interceptions in the first half. So, he really is Brad Johnson. He like there's like 2 or 3 Brad Johnsons in every era of football, like Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer, and then name another guy from like the late 90s, early 2000s. And right now, the game manager, the high profile game manager types are probably Kirk Cousins, maybe even Ryan Tannehill. Like Ryan Tannehill really taking advantage of a great system and circumstances in Miami, and then you can probably name somebody else too. That's the bin that he's in. And I don't think that's a terrible thing. Like you'd rather have somebody who can at least like get in the vehicle and not be a total disaster than a Christian Ponder or what Sam Darnold has become with the Jets. But it all comes down to percentage of the salary cap, and that's the issue. Like if you had a guy that was making like $30 million less, and like you're not going to crash the car, but you have a Dalvin, a Justin, you got an Adam Thielen, and you have defense and an offensive line. But the Vikings don't have enough cap space to fix some of those problems. So now can he change this narrative if he comes out and slings it at Chicago and is the reason why the Vikings win a Monday night game against a tough division opponent? Or are you set in stone with your Kirk Cousins, opinion?
I'm pretty set in stone because I've seen this film repeatedly. So like if he does it once, that's why I think that the Saints playoff win was so encouraging, because he did make that throw in that game and you said, oh wow, that's it. But you need to do that repeatedly in big games. And if he could put together a slew of come from behind fourth quarter comebacks, I guess it could change, but I don't think that's him. I don't think that's him. He is for the most part, when controlled correctly, he is a safe option. But again, and the problem too is, I think this discussion would be entirely tolerable if this show were on circa 1992. Like, I think we'd be like, oh, Cook is great. This is fantastic. It's a running league. His big shoulder pads look fantastic. But it's not. It's 2020. And I keep coming back to this point, and I think it's going to ultimately be important. Dalvin Cook's fantastic. But you have the Justin Jefferson car sitting in the garage for the most part. And he's phenomenal. I mean, I don't think that they stumbled upon this. Well, he's pretty good, but I don't know. I need to see a lot more. I've seen enough to say, wow, show me more. Let's get this thing out on the freeway. Let's hightail this car. Let's see what this car can do. And they literally are scared to, Phil. Like, they're scared to. And this is not a Justin Jefferson problem. This is the guy driving the car might crash it, and oh my God. And so let's run the Dalvin car to its basically, unfortunately, to its football demise. And if it's 1989, I think we'd be like, well, it's not ideal, but you know what? You can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you have an ingredient. You have an ingredient in Jefferson, in my mind, that is no question potentially part of a Super Bowl stew, and like a big part, like an important part. And you literally are looking at the chef and saying, don't use that ingredient too much, because I don't trust you not to screw that up. And that's a real problem.
Because I know there's a lot of people that listen and watch this show on a daily basis that think we're too hard on Kirk, and that like all you guys do, even in a win against the Lions, like you can't give Kirk the praise. And I just to speak to that section of Vikings fans for a second.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I am hard on Kirk personally is because I envision this team, and I'm putting myself like, all right, in the what if mindset of, you've got these great skill position players, your defense is being coached up better, and you actually have some really good young talent on defense that's going to keep getting better if Danielle Hunter comes back too. And it looks like you might have found a couple cornerstones on your offensive line with Garrett Bradbury and Brian O'Neill for sure, and Ezra Cleveland. Imagine if you had, instead of an albatross contract and a limited quarterback with all these things, imagine if you had a Justin Herbert or a Kyler Murray or a Tua, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer 20 years ago where it's like 30% that you're going to nail your first round draft pick quarterback. That it's just a total crapshoot, and most of the guys don't pan out. This league is set up for young quarterbacks to come in. Justin Herbert Dude's never played in the NFL before. Look at that guy every single week. He's just ridiculous. And Joe Burrow has some of the worst infrastructure in the league in Cincinnati. And he just comes out and he slings it every single week. The Vikings have pretty good infrastructure. They have a good front office. They have a good coach. They have great skill position players. And like they're not a train wreck franchise, having a down year. But imagine if you were to take what the Vikings currently have at quarterback and replace it with any number of these high upside and rookie contract mobile quarterbacks coming out in 2021, and how much more exciting it would be to watch, because you'd be rooting for like the 5-year upside of that player, but just how much better, I think we cling so much to what we have, and we get, because like look at Miami, all the consternation about, well, Ryan Fitzpatrick is playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens if Tua's terrible? Or in Kansas City, well, Alex Smith was playing pretty well. Like, how could you? They're 11-5 with Alex Smith. How could you just jettison Alex Smith for this rookie quarterback? And it feels the same way in Minnesota right now. Well, I mean, Kirk threw some interceptions, but he throws like 4,000 yards a season, and it's like, you guys, it's not that risky to move on from Alex Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Kirk Cousins. In fact, it's a bigger risk to not go for the high upside rookie mobile guy if your goal is to win a Super Bowl. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Kirk Cousins, especially if they make a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's get rid of this risk mindset of, well, I don't know, if you get rid of Kirk, what are you going to land? Look at all these first round quarterbacks that come out every year. You might land a Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
You might land a Kyler Murray type if you just open your mind to the possibility of a good. You might land a Lamar Jackson. That dude was the 32nd pick in the draft. He was available for everybody late in the first round, for God's sakes.
Right.
So that's where I'm at with this. Like, just imagine adding that dynamic and that component to a team that has a lot of good pieces, if not great pieces, around it.
I got 2 points because I do think it's fair to start also with your point, which is people that watch and tune into the show are basically like, you guys always rip Cousins. I'm tired of that. I'd like to pivot to people not seeing this as a Kirk rip. I'd like to pivot to people seeing this as a praise of a guy like Justin Jefferson, who I want to see. Like, this is a special talent. I can't articulate enough in the little that we've seen that this might be, and I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here, but this in some ways feels to me like 1998 and Moss, but you don't trust Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, Randall.
That's a great point.
We can't throw the ball to Randy. We just can't. And Moss would be like, what? And think about that, because Moss needed someone to throw him the football. Like, if they had put training wheels on the quarterback back then, he doesn't have that year. The franchise doesn't really pivot and change.
Yep.
And this kid feels special. Now, I think that they're being a little bit too cautious in some ways because of this. Thielen is still their guy. And I think he's good, but Thielen needs Cousins to throw accurate passes for him to catch the ball. My point about Jefferson is I think he's more like Moss. I think he could make Kirk look good, and they're not allowing that. But it's also important to point out that we should not lose sight of the fact, and we do not think that it was a personality clash, and that's important here. We should not lose sight of the fact that Stephon Diggs forced his way out. Stephon Diggs is a very good player.
Mm-hmm.
He is probably top 5 receiver in this entire league. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And he was with the Vikings too.
Okay.
By the way.
And he
just didn't get the chance.
And he looked at things as they're run offensively and said, I can't play here. That's too good a player for the team and the fan base just to be like, well, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not fine. Something went really wrong there. And Jefferson looks fantastic. But guess what? I don't blame that kid if he goes home after being targeted, I believe, 3 times against the Detroit Lions and privately says, what was that? What was that? The other point, Phil, quarterback wise, where I've gone now, is if Zimmer is going to be the coach of this team for the next, let's say 3 years, let's say 5 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I would like to see a young, exciting QB who progresses, drafted and cultivated, all right? But we are literally watching an offense where you could bring in a veteran, solid QB and pay him a very reasonable to moderate salary, and he could do the same things that Kirk is being asked to do now. Keep in mind, Keenum was considered too high risk. Kirk actually is not. He'd prefer not to be. But I can go find you in March a quarterback off the street to replace Kirk as long as Dalvin is healthy and doing Dalvin things, okay? Who could do the same things that Kirk is doing, and I could probably pay that quarterback about 10 mil for. But I want to make it very clear. To me, what we are doing is we are not ripping Kirk. We are, in my opinion, looking at Justin Jefferson, who God has blessed with talent and who I would like to see that talent. And somebody internally at TCO Performance Center is saying, can't do it. Don't trust it.
It's true. It is true. I love your 1998 comparison because they actually did start that season with Brad Johnson, sort of the 20 years ago equivalent to Kirk Cousins.
And he got hurt.
And Brad Johnson, even before he got hurt, was at least slinging it to Randy Moss, right?
Yeah.
First game, I'd have to go back and look
Tampa
at the
Bay
numbers.
touchdown. No, you're exactly right.
So maybe the numbers would say otherwise in terms of like targets, but yeah, but they said, all right, Randall Cunningham gets a ton of praise, rightfully so, for how he looked in 1998, but throwing it up in the air 50 different times for Randy Moss to run underneath it, a lot of quarterbacks, just given empowerment, could do something like that. I want to, just in terms of one more point before we get to our pigskin pecking order on the young quarterbacks, and just one more point off the risk of, well, you can't, is it a bird in the hand is worth more than two, whatever? What's the, you know what I'm saying?
I'm going to screw it up if I.
Yeah. This is if you go back and look at the first round draft pick quarterbacks, the last handful of years. So I looked at the last 17 first round draft pick quarterbacks going back to like 2016. All right. 10 of them are franchise quarterbacks. So 10 of 17 within 3 years or 4 years, you could already deem as they are absolute hits. Okay. Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff. I am putting Carson Wentz, even though he's having a down season. Carson Wentz has been really good. Yeah. Was up for MVP conversation before he got hurt in the Super Bowl season. I think there are only two out of 17 I think are flat busts. I think Mitchell Trubisky's a bust, and I think Josh Rosen's a bust. And then there's 5 other guys I would put in the jury still out category. Jordan Love hasn't even played yet. Daniel Jones, jury still out. He was just drafted last year. I think Dwayne Haskins, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield, the jury is still out on all those guys.
Sure.
So, again, well, what's the risk? Well, 17 quarterbacks drafted, 10 of them are just straight franchise quarterbacks on rookie contracts right now. So imagine a world in which any of these guys, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, even Jared Goff, before he signed he's off his rookie contract, I think starting next year, maybe it's this year. Justin Herbert, imagine these dudes in a Vikings uniform finding Justin Jefferson. And guess what they can all do? They can hand off to Dalvin Cook too. That's the beauty.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take anyone special to hand off to Dalvin Cook.
Absolutely.
Now, but what if you get stuck with a Daniel Jones? Well, it happens. You'll probably still go 10-6 because guess what?
And guess what?
Makes
you're
a
not
lot
doing.
less money.
Exactly. You're not paying him.
So
that's the important thing here. You're not paying him.
Exactly. So any final thoughts on the state of Kirk Cousins for
No, I'm going to come back to the point until he has breakout games. Justin Jefferson. I want to see him more. Cook is great, but I mean, it makes no sense to have a player who is clearly as talented as this kid is and be afraid, and they are, be afraid to use him.
Amen. Amen.
Football.
Gentlemen, every Wednesday we also give our top 10 teams in the NFL in order. It's called the Pigskin Pecking Order, and it is presented by our friends at Corona Hard Seltzer, spiked, sparkling water, natural fruit flavors, and you can find 4 flavors. We enjoy all of them. Mango is my favorite. If I had a pecking order of Corona Hard Seltzer flavors, mango would be in the number 1 spot.
Judd, I know you're not a big seltzer guy, but if you had to pick between those flavors that intrigues you the most, so it's blackberry lime,
okay,
it's lime,
okay,
cherry, and mango. Which one would Judd Zulgad take a stab at?
Lime, cherry. I probably would go cherry, but I might go lime. I like lime.
Mm-hmm.
I like lime. I'm probably slightly leaning right now towards a cherry.
Okay.
So I'd probably go cherry, lime, and then the other two after that if I had to list them in a pecking order.
And how would you rank your top 10 NFL teams, Judd?
All right. I'm the only guy who writes these out on paper, so allow me. Pecking order right there. All right. Falling out for me. And they'll be out. They'll be back in. It's fine. Falling out, the Indianapolis Colts. 5-3. I actually like them.
Yeah.
They're good.
They're still good.
Yeah, they're fine, but they're gone. Still out, by the way, week 2 of my ban for them, the Packers.
Yeah, they got to earn their way back.
That's 6-2. And that San Francisco win meant nothing.
I got him.
That was the 49ers JV. That game being played signifies that the National Football League, COVID be damned, is going to get through this. So they're still out. Close, but not in quite yet. The Las Vegas Raiders, 5-3. They're teetering though. They're getting close. All right. So my pigskin pecking order top 10, starting at number 10, falling from number 4. Ooh, do they look bad? Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, big punishment.
6-3. I mean, you know what? Losing to the Saints, Phil, is fine. But not showing up and playing that poorly on both sides of the football was just embarrassing. So Tampa Bay is number 10. Number 9, falling 3 spots, and they'll probably fall out again at some point in time here. Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals at 5-3. Lost to the Dolphins. I love Kyler. I really do. Cardinals, I think, are going to be good eventually here. Probably won't be this year. So they're number 9. Number 8, moving into the rankings for the first time, I think, this year. They've won 4 consecutive games. They beat the Cardinals. And by the way, in point differential, gentlemen, they're plus 61 now. That's damn impressive. The Miami Dolphins are number 8.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Dolphins, who I can name their quarterbacks and almost no one else from their team, basically, as far as players go. They are number 8. Number 7, moving up 1 spot, the Tennessee Titans at 6-2. Moving up from 10 to 6, they've only lost 2 games. Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. So they are number 6. Number 5, falling from number 3. They probably should have fallen farther, but this league is just so weird. Mm-hmm. The Seattle Seahawks at 6-2. Going from 7 to 4 because they did spank the Buccaneers so badly. The Saints. The Saints are coming. I think the Saints, before this is all said and done, might be the class of the conference.
Yeah.
Yep. Slow start. Michael Thomas is back, and now we find out who they are.
Exactly.
And we started to find out.
And Drew Brees now, and yeah. Okay, so my top 3 are all AFC representatives. Number 3, going up from number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. And then my top 2 hold steady. Pittsburgh, undefeated, but I still have them at 2 because I have the Chiefs number 1 at 8-1. So I go Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, Saints, and Seahawks are my top 5. Bills, Titans, Dolphins moving in, Cardinals, and Bucks.
Interesting. All right, we're pretty similar. I did bump the Colts slightly out. The Cardinals are knocking on the door. The Rams and Niners are knocking on the door, just depending on health and whatnot. I've got the Dolphins number 10. This is their first appearance, I believe, in my pigskin pecking order. They look better with Tua. Like, everyone's all like, oh my God, you're going to this rookie. Yeah, look at that dude's one of the best quarterbacks we've seen under the age of like 23. And here he is, healthy and bringing the Dolphins to another level. I did put the Packers back in. Their punishment is over. They're number 9, but they are definitely on probation because they tend to get their butts popped in the mouth with a flurry of fists, and then they just like quit playing. Aaron Rodgers is a classic front-running great quarterback. He's still one of the all-time greats, but Packers number 9. Titans number 8. I'll fly through this year. Ravens number 7. I don't fully buy the Ravens as a top contender because Lamar Jackson is not the same quarterback he was last year.
Yeah, good point.
So I'm just a little bit. I know the Ravens beat the Colts, and it was actually his first ever come from behind second half victory. Mm-hmm. So I just need to see a little bit more from Lamar Jackson. I have the Bills at number 6. It's such a weird dynamic watching the Bills score a ton of points and have a shaky defense. Usually it's the other way around, but this is kind of the Bills from 30 years ago, although they had a great defense 30 years ago. The Buccaneers, I'm not punishing too much. That was the ugliest performance by a good team all year, and so they're also on probation, and they've dropped to the fringe of my top 5. I still think they're a Super Bowl contender, but oof, that was ugly. Number 4, Seahawks. Not going to punish them too much either. They were banged up. Number 3, I got the Saints jumping all the way up into the top 3. Steelers 2, Chiefs 1, for obvious reasons. So Chiefs, Steelers, Saints, Seahawks, Bucks, Bills, Ravens, Titans, Packers, Dolphins.
All
Dex?
right. I am putting the Packers back at number 10. Yes, that was the JV squad in San Francisco, but I expect you to beat the JV squad like that. So they are back, but yes, they will have to earn their way back up into the top 5, but they're number 10 for me. Cardinals number 9 with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray and Tua went into a shootout mode. That was a super fun game. I like what the Cardinals are doing. I think they're a fun team to watch. They're not perfect, but they belong in the top 10. The Bucks fall all the way to 8 for me after that, absolutely laying an egg against the Saints. And keep in mind, two of their losses are to Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. It lost week 1 there as well. So Tampa Bay falls all the way to 8 for me. The Titans are 7. They almost knocked off the Steelers, who are still, I think, one of the best teams in the league. And Ryan Tannehill has been very good. I've been very impressed with what the Titans are doing. The Bills at number 6, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are balling out. I have the Seahawks 5 and the Ravens 4. And the reason I have that is they're basically polar opposites. Like the Ravens team is unbelievable, but Lamar Jackson has taken a step back.
Yeah.
It's the opposite in Seattle. That team is pretty bad without Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's literally carrying them to victories this year. So 5 Seahawks, 4 Ravens. The Saints are number 3 for me. The Chiefs number 2, and holding number 1 is still Pittsburgh because they're undefeated. I know they almost lost to Ben DiNucci and the Cowboys, but I still have to give an undefeated
DiNucci didn't play, man. He's out.
Yeah, it was
They
another.
started
it
some
was
guy
another
in
random
the
guy.
bonehead. Who was
They've
in
got
bonehead?
all these QBs that
Some
I
other
have
random
never
guy.
heard of in my life, okay?
I still think Kellen Moore just put on the headset.
But
Put the headset in the
Ben
helmet.
DiNucci's a great name.
Oh man, I can't wait for the Vikings to play them. But I do think the
Like the
Steelers.
Godfather.
Yeah, you're going to get the
Are
red
still
rifle
It's
back.
like the
in there.
Godfather.
That's right.
Be careful what you wish for. Andy Dalton's about to
Oh boy.
carve up the Vikings.
They killed DiNucci. They killed him. We must get revenge.
Did they like cut him, or is he just a backup now?
No,
What happened to that guy?
I think he's just the water boy again.
Gotcha. So yeah, my list 10 through 1 goes Packers, Cardinals, Bucks, Titans, Bills, Seahawks, Ravens, Saints, Chiefs, and the Pittsburgh Steelers as your number 1 team.
There you go. All right, that's the pigskin pecking order here on Purple Daily with Mackey and Judd. Purple Positivity Thursday tomorrow.
A lot of it.
A lot easier than
2
it was 3
consecutive
weeks
wins.
ago. Yeah.
Bringing it.
Garrett Gilbert was the quarterback that started for the Cowboys.
Wow.
Who?
Garrett Gilbert, a 2014
Oh, that's right.
6th round pick from the St. Louis Rams.
All right, Garrett,
God
go
bless
get
you.
him, buddy. G squared. All right, thanks for hanging out with us on Purple Daily. We will see you guys tomorrow.